Hello and welcome to the Oddschecker betting show sponsored by 888 Sport. This is your Haydock and Ascot preview ahead of the weekend's racing. Find out which horse has Andy Holding thinking about the shunter.
Come Saturday afternoon, I think and I'm hoping that he will put himself firmly on the map.
Get Barry Geraghty's thoughts on the Betfair Chase and his old friend Defi du Seuil.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing Defi as well. An absolute superstar.
And find out which horse Ed Quigley thinks at a double-figure price at Ascot is his nap of the weekend and should be as short as 6-1.
This horse loves Ascot. I think he should be half the price he is.
Delighted to be joined on the Oddschecker betting show today by Oddschecker's very own Andy Holding and Oddschecker betting show regular Ed Quigley. Two men who were both on course at Cheltenham last weekend, so can't move on to this weekend's racing without casting a glance back over our shoulder at the November meeting. Andy, coming to you first, how was it from your perspective, and what are you taking away from the weekend's racing?
First and foremost, just great to be back at Cheltenham. The racing could have been better numerically. I think everyone knows that. But that aside, the crowd was fairly healthy, gave a real good atmosphere to all races. There was lots of close finishes, lots of good stories, some highs and lows, obviously for certain trainers. Dan Skelton probably being the most predominant figure of the whole entire weekend. Whether we've seen any Cheltenham Festival winners remains to be seen. It's always quite a good stepping stone, isn't it, for the festival, that meeting. I've got a sneaky feeling there might be just one, maybe two that I'd suggest might have half a squeak in a few more months' time down the line. But yeah, it was just a really good meeting. I thoroughly enjoyed myself coming away, totally invigorated by going back on the racecourse again.
Totally invigorated. Ed, can we say the same about you after your birthday celebrations?
Well, I'll say I was reinvigorated at one point, but yeah, probably the opposite end of the spectrum by Sunday evening, as to be said. No, it was great though. It really was. As Andy says, great to be back. I mean, there was a bumper crowd of 34,000 there on Saturday. That was up from the 2019 number, I do believe. A rocking atmosphere. It was really good. Some really exciting racing, and yeah, I've actually taken quite a positive view of the performances there from that meeting going forward. With a view of kind of long-term aims. Obviously, I like Sporting John was a highlight for myself, but I thought Blazing Cow was quite impressive. He could make up into an Albert Bartlett contender, and I still wouldn't give up on my Drogo. Far from it in terms of reaching the top of the tree or dining at the top table in the novice chases this season. So yeah, lots of great talking points as there always is, and but it was a thoroughly enjoyable 3 days worth of action.
Let's mention that My Drogo race and specifically what we saw from Rachel Blackmore, Ed. I mean, have you ever seen anything like that before?
No, I mean, I actually went down on the rails, onto the rails for this race, and I was kind of just looking down the home straight. And of course, when it happened in real time, naturally, I thought My Drogo had fallen and brought down, or at least interfered with, Gin Online, causing the upset. But when you saw it head on, yeah, it was quite remarkable, really. A two-runner race at the same fence, two independent mistakes, and My Drogo's jumped the fence fine. I mean, he's absolutely winged it, hasn't he? And his feet, and you can see it slow motion, the turf just gives way, and his feet just slip on landing. So that was crazy. And then obviously Rachel managed to stay on board Gin Online and go and pick up the pieces. Yeah, that was a funny one. That was probably the biggest noise from the crowd over the 3 days, it has to be said. But yeah, there was a great action. We didn't even talk about Paddy Power Gold Cup, which was run at a ferocious pace to the eye. I mean, I haven't seen any evidence on the stopwatch to back that up, but a couple of the jockeys coming into the weighing room after saying that felt like a 2-mile championship race, the speed they went off there. I mean, there were so many horses in the Paddy Power Gold Cup who were thrown in the towel from about 4 out, weren't they? And it was quite, it was brilliant for Midnight Shadow and Sue Smith, and they're going to tilt at Windmills and go for the King George. I think, well, why not? Great horse. He'll probably get his ground there, and the connections have some fun as a 50-1 shot. Yeah, great 3 days of racing, loads of talking points, and we move on.
We move on, exactly, because this weekend, this Saturday in particular, we've got some cracking racing at Haydock, including the Betfair Chase, and a couple of really interesting races over at Ascot as well. So we're going to be covering the 4 last races, starting with the graduation chase at Haydock, and then move over to Ascot to do a couple there. And then Andy, as ever, the novice hurdle king. I'll ask you if there's any to keep an eye on in the 2 novice hurdles that open up each card at Haydock and at Ascot. Before we get into the racing, going to point the listeners and viewers, as ever, in the direction of the oddschecker app. There you can get the best prices, bookie offers, free bets, place terms, and of course, Andy Holding's tips straight to the app, straight to your phone at around 9 a.m. every day before racing. Let's get into the action, though. The 150 at Haydock is the first race we're going to be covering in detail. We're going to go through these, and then in about 10 or so minutes, we'll be speaking to 888 Sport ambassador Barry Geraghty on his thoughts of last weekend's racing and the weekend we've got ahead of us as well. So do stay tuned for that. But first, the 150, a four-runner race, this one, Andy. Brave Man's Game is the 8-13 favourite, ahead of Itchy Feet at 4-1. Pay the Piper 5-1. Al Nadam is 20-1. Not the most appealing from a punting perspective, but an interesting race nonetheless.
Yeah, I think a lot of these novice chases, graduation chases, you like to call them, are always small fields, but we get a chance to see each rung of the ladder, don't we, with these, which horses these go on. Obviously, starting with Brave Man's Game, he's the obvious starting point. We all know he was a top-class hurdler. He was only just outpointed by two of the best we've probably seen for a decade, Bob Ollinger and Gaillard de Mesnil in that division. And he's always looked as though he's going to be a chaser. I mean, that's what he was brought for, and he started his career in pretty dominant fashion, didn't he, down in Newton Abbot? It might have only been Newton Abbot, but little did we know at the time he was beating the subsequent Charlie Hall winner in the shape of Fuso Raffles, albeit he was slightly fortuitous, as we know, because Sean Blue would have probably won that race. But he jumped the fences fantastically well, as you'd imagine from a Paul Nicholls horse first time out. Looked a natural. And Haydock's the natural progression to take him to, isn't it? Flat left-handed track, similar to Newbury. The fences come up nice. They're already probably thinking a year down the line, aren't they, the Nicholls team? They're already thinking, oh, this is a Betfair Chase horse for next season. So give him a spin round there. They'll probably go to Cheltenham at some stage. Maybe, the Christmas meeting or maybe the New Year meeting. And and then probably think about RSA or even the shorter distance race, the Mars, depending on, of course, how he gets on. He'll have stern competition with Itchy Feet. Obviously, he was second to All Mankind at Aintree, and that form has been franked, hasn't it, with the third horse winning the Paddy Power Chase, Midnight Legend. And Pay the Piper's no mug. He ran really well in the Colin Parker, touched off by a resurgent or rejuvenated Fiddler on the Roof. So that form on its own is pretty good. I think he's better than the mark at the moment of 141. So it's a fascinating race. I'd imagine that we expect Brave Man's Game to win. Whether he's a betting proposition, that's down to personal choice at 4-6. But yeah, I think hopefully we'll learn a little bit more come 2 o'clock Saturday.
Yeah, 8-13 best price at the moment. Brave Man's Game, including 888 Sport, who are top price. Ed, how do you see it?
Yeah, I'd agree with a lot of what Andy said there. Funny enough, though, I would take the look. I think he's the best horse, or will be the best horse, and that's the kind of key here. Will be. He's very much priced up on potential. We had this kind of discussion last week with was it the Willie Mullins mare, Early Morning Rain. I think in time she could be very good, but you're talking about now. He's priced up. He's touching twos on across the board. He's being priced up as if he's already been there and done it. Well, if you look at official figures, he's not even the best horse in the field. I mean, even allowing for the fact he gets £4 from Itchy Feet. Itchy Feet would be giving him £6 if they met in a handicap. So it's one of those again. I think he's got the potential. He will be the best horse, but the market is priced up as though he's got a lot more superiority over his rivals than perhaps he's entitled to have in the market. If you see what I'm saying? All in all, I think he'll probably win, but I think he's got a bit more on his plate than his price suggests. That would be my kind of underlining for it. Itchy Feet. I wish they go 3 miles with this horse. Been saying it for a long time. I mean, Ollie Murphy even said it last time. He said we're going to have to look for a 3-mile contest next time out. They're kind of sticking in and around this intermediate trip. He just gets going too late, doesn't he? He's done on more than one occasion now. So I would like to see Itchy Feet up in trip. Pay the Piper's no mug, as Andy says. He'll probably be there and thereabouts. All Nadam will be one for further down the line. The Dan Scouter team. I mean, he looks a big price on the face of it, given his rating. But the Dan Scouter team have already come out and given the, he'll come on for the run, strip fitter, etc., etc. So I think there'll be other days with that horse. But yeah, I think Brave Man's Game, most likely winner, obviously has the potential, but has a little bit more on his plate than a twos-on favourite. Than the price would suggest. Is how I'd sum it up.
Who do you think would be the most likely to serve it up to him on the day?
Oh, itchy feet, definitely. But I think they've got to. I said, I think he needs 3 miles. I think they've got to try and mix things up. I would ride him more forcefully, really let him go at his fences. They tend to try and switch him off now and again and come with a late rattle. He gets out pace, gets out of his comfort zone, and gets going too late. I'd be interested if they, cheap pieces on, just bowled him along in front, and it may set the race up perfectly for Brave Man's game. But you can't just keep doing the same thing and losing and then saying, oh, well, that's the way it is. You've got to try something different. And yeah, this small field probably does play to Brave Man's game strengths. But itchy feet, if you could just iron things out in the jumping department, which has been his Achilles heel, and perhaps change tactics up a bit, I do think he'll give Brave Man's game something to think about. But I do, in the end, expect the Paul Nicholls individual to come out on top. And I think a little bit with this as well, final point on him is, Andy did touch upon Paul Nicholls' quote at the start of the season was, where has I got it here? I'm not sure he quite wants 3 miles as everyone else is convinced he does. So Nicholls, in the back of his mind, obviously thinks he's not short of a bit of boot. And so they're kind of going up in trips this extended 2 miles 5 now. And they're probably, on the back of that, they might think, well, whether he needs 3 miles for something like the Corto style novices or whether they look for like the Dipper or something. So I think there's an element of a fact find. There's a bigger picture here than the fact he's just going to turn up and win tomorrow. There's a lot of fact finding to go with it, I think. And so, yeah, Brave Man's game for me to win. But I wouldn't be shocked if Itchy Feet was there or thereabouts as they came towards the last.
Itchy Feet 4-1 best price as it is at the moment. So on then to the 225, the Stayers Handicap hurdle. Over 3 miles, and Riggs and Right Place, Right Time are the 11-2 joint favourite. Spoiler alert, listen on after this preview when I speak to Barry Geraghty and he'll talk about Right Place, Right Time, a horse that he fancies this weekend. Orby's Legend is 7-1, Flight Deck 10-1, Bass Rock 10-1, Stony Mountain 11-1. Did They Leave You 12-1? If the Cap Fits 14-1, 16-1 bar, including Gladiator Allen, who is blue all across oddschecker at the moment. Andy, how do you see this? An open affair as it is at the moment, 16 run.
Yeah, wide open numerically, but there's a potential couple of blots on the handicap. You could argue that Orby's Legend fits into that category still, despite winning the Silver Trophy at Chepstow. That form has been advertised last weekend, wasn't it? When Gale Road, I think he finished 6th in the Silver Trophy, went on to win at Cheltenham in pretty decisive fashion. I was really impressed with Gale Road, by the way. We didn't talk about horses to keep an eye on out of Cheltenham, but he would have definitely made my top 3. I like the way he hit the line up the hill at Prestbury. And he was well beaten, like I say, by Philip Hodges' runner down at Chepstow. And he has got a run style, Orby's Legend, as well, which is also very suited or should be suited to Haydock, because we know often horses that make the running, or certainly with up the pace around that tight inner circuit up there in Merseyside, definitely is worth bearing in mind. So I think he's definitely one for my shortlist, but there's no doubt about it that Right Place, Right Time is the one that your eyes are drawn to. My eyes are certainly drawn to him anyway, because he's owned by a good friend of mine, Paul Byrne, who's probably one of the shrewdest owners over in Ireland. The way they plotted the course all the way to Cheltenham with the shunter last year was nothing short of genius, and they literally left no stone unturned in every single decision they made. Who was going to ride him, where they were going to ride him in a race. It was just brilliant to see both Emmett and Paula at their finest there. And even in the end, they even knew when they probably hadn't got much juice left in the tank, and they sold it to JP just to put the cherry on the cake. But they've got this Right Place, Right Time now, who has mixed it under both disciplines recently, but he was really good the other day. I think it was at Fairyhouse, wasn't he, when he made all the running? I think it was very significant. It's the first time he's really been attacked at his fences, and he jumped really well. Whereas prior to that, he wasn't so great. But they've got him into this handicap. First and foremost, the fact that he's coming over is a significant fact, and he's going back to hurdling. And he's snuck in as well right down the bottom. They have backed him anti-post, I can tell you that, for nothing. I think they've hoovered up all the 12-1 midweek, and it was sort of like oddschecker blue come Wednesday afternoon, so we knew that it was going to be a runner. And then they booked Harry Kimber as well, just to put the icing on the cake, getting him, racing under 10 stone. He's a prominent race as well now, as we saw at Fairyhouse. So he's got the run style to very much cause some damage here. I find it very, very difficult to see him not running well. Whether he's going to be...
I was going to say, is there still juice at 11-2, or do you think now the value's gone?
Oh no, because I don't think this is a strong race. I mean, Riggs, to be fair to him, he's 5-1. I thought he ran okay at Aintree, but it's just okay form. You know, that McElduff ran perfectly respectable at Cheltenham on Saturday, but he didn't, scream to me like, oh yeah, this is, £10-12 well in if you're a weights and measures man. I just think I'd rather just stick with class and form and horses that I think have still got a bit of potential. And I do think Right Place, Right Time is very well handicapped off 125. And I still think Orby's Legend, of what we saw in the other day at Chepstow, has still got some mileage in him. I mean, you've got the likes of Stony Mountain if the cap fits, and one or two horses that have been around the block a little bit here. So yeah, the two sort of young bloods coming through would make the most appeal.
Orby's Legend 7-1 best price, Right Place, Right Time 11-2, 888 Sport. One of the firms going 11-2. Ed, 2 there against the field. Any that you like?
Absolutely no idea, to be honest with you, George. I mean, I could spend 4 months giving you a load of platitudes and waffle here about this race. It's time my brain did not, to be honest with you. I was going through it. I thought, that's got a good chance. That's got a good chance. No, I mean, a token suggestion would be if the cap fits purely on the basis of, and he talked about class of form. Well, it's kind of in reverse with him. He's been there and done it. He's on the decline, but his handicap mark, the old handbrake, is coming off in credit. He's now down to mark of 149. He slipped down 17 pounds over the course of 18 months. And he did show a lot more encouragement last time out. A lot of the old zest was there over 2.5 at Aintree, obviously behind Brewing Up a Storm. He bolted up, but he was staying on the line. I think a return to a staying trip will suit him. He's a double figure price, and Dale Jacob goes there. Again, look, check your each way concessions. If you could get something really fancy, I might be half tempted to have an each way play on him because I think he'll stay on into a place. But a race I think is fiercely competitive, and left the dance floor to Andy on that one.
Left the dance floor to Andy, and as I've alluded to, I was lucky enough to speak to 888 Sport Barry. As I've alluded to, I was lucky enough to catch up earlier with 888 Sport ambassador Barry Geraghty, who takes me through his weekend's fancies, including one that Andy's just given a pretty big write-up in the race we've just covered there. Yes, delighted as ever to be joined on the Oddschecker betting show by 888 Sport ambassador Barry Geraghty. Barry, very happy to have you with us today. Just me and you for this segment this time. How's it been going this week? Looking forward to the weekend's racing.
Yeah, it's good. Great action last weekend, but definitely looking forward to this weekend. It's really hotting up now, isn't it?
It absolutely is. And we're going to talk about a couple of the big races at Haydock and at Ascot in a second. But before we do that, important to look back at last weekend's racing. We had some cracking stuff in the November meeting at Cheltenham, some good stuff over in Ireland as well. Anything catch your eye? Any horses, winners or not, who you're going to be keeping an eye out for the next run?
Yeah, no, it was brilliant. Obviously, Nubia Negra was good, but I think he'll meet stronger opposition as the season goes on. I thought the Greatwood was the best handicap run in England in a while. The handicaps for me last season didn't live up, where I thought this was a great race. West Cork obviously coming back after about 600 days off was a great performance. Adagio as a 4-year-old I thought was a big run with top weight, but no Ordinary Joe. I wouldn't say it was ideal for him to make the running, although he wasn't hassled on front. It was only his 4th run over hurdles, so I think there's better to come from him.
Yeah, certainly a brilliant weekend racing, and you mentioned Nubia Negra there and West Cork, a good weekend for the Skelton team too. But looking ahead to this weekend, and we're going to quickly go through now the Betfair Chase, the 3 o'clock at Haydock on Saturday, race just over 3 miles, 1 furlong, 3 miles 2 it is, isn't it? And A Plutard is the 6-4 favourite. Barry, we haven't seen A Plutard since we're finishing runner-up behind Manila Indo at Cheltenham, and an exciting addition to this one. Bristol de Mai obviously looking to equal Corto Star's 4th win in this race.
Yeah, exactly. Great to have A Plutard over for it. And Bristol de Mai, he's won it twice on heavy and he's won it on good as well. Second to Lost in Translation. He loves the place. He probably, I think, and especially as a 10-year-old, emphasis on stamina is important to him. So I think he is vulnerable on this ground. And A Plutard is the obvious one. But the negative on A Plutard is he's been a beaten favourite on his first run for the last 3 seasons. In good races, he was beaten first time last year in the Betfair Chase by Castlegrace Paddy, or by Ballyushin, should I say. The year before that by Castlegrace Paddy, he was beaten first time. So that's the negative for him. But a horse who is a high-class performer, waiting patiently, third in the Tingle Creek last year on his first run, before being second in the King George. He's a horse with great early season form, although he's had a fairly interrupted time of it over the years. He's moved to Christian Williams, who horses are flying. He's doing a brilliant job. He's really happy with this fella. There's great reports coming from him. So he is a proven classy performer. And he just could be a dark one in here, I think.
Yeah, waiting patiently. Currently 6-1 best price, that is, with 888 Sport themselves. On A Plus Tard quickly, because you mentioned their beaten favourite on his first three reappearances, his last three reappearances, and it does feel like quite often some of Henry de Bromhead's horses do come on for that first run. Why do you think that is? And do you think that's a reason here maybe to steer clear of A Plus Tard at the top of the market?
Yeah, well, Henry's do improve. It's how he trains, and you will see, different horses though. Horses can be fit and ready first time. There was a concern about Sharjah last weekend. Would he be fit enough? Some horses are easier to get fit than others. Some trainers don't press them as hard for their first run. So Henry's generally improve. And, if you were to take a horse out of this for the season, A Plus Tard is the one you would want to take out. But I just think he's vulnerable. And as you say, Henry's aren't overcooked for their first run, where on the other hand, say Paul Nicholls would have them fit as fleas, and likewise the Twiston Davis camp with Bristol de Mai.
Yeah, and then looking at Bristol de Mai as well, a horse who quite clearly comes alive at Haydock, comes alive in this race. Why do you think that is? Because obviously when you see Bristol de Mai in this kind of company elsewhere, the prices don't reflect that level of parity.
It's possibly a reflection on how he's trained. He is, the Twiston Davis horses, they hit the ground running early on in the season. They've had a good Cheltenham. I like to move. It's been really good this season. Horses are fit and ready first time. And I think emphasis on stamina as well. He puts them to the sword. He makes them work. And you've seen good horses coming to Bristol de Mai and they've struggled to get past him because he's fit and ready and hard. And it's just how the Twiston Davis camp operate, and the horses are fit first time. So I think he benefits from that. And probably catches some horses just on the back foot, maybe.
Interesting. I mean, plenty of cracking racing this weekend at Haydock and Ascot as well. Any horses that you fancy elsewhere that the listeners and viewers should keep an eye on over the weekend?
Yeah, I thought right place, right time was interesting in the fixed brush hurdle. And maybe a lot of the value is gone at this stage. I'm not sure what price he's into now, but he has a very similar profile to the Shunter. He has the same owner as well, but he's had 3 runs for Emmett Mullins since coming from a different yard. He had 2 runs over 2-2 or 2-3 in beginners chases before stepping up to 3 mile and winning really impressively last time. So this is a 3 mile hurdle over the fixed brush hurdles. So he has a little bit of chase experience, which I think will stand to him. But interestingly, and it might be a coincidence, but it's very similar. The Shunter started this season off of 108 last year. So he shot to 143 over hurdles and 156, I think it was over fence or thereabouts. This fella's 108 as well. Now he's gone to an English mark of 125, but I don't think Emmett Mullins or Paul Byrne would be bringing him over for the fun of it like they did with Shunter last year when he won the Greatwood. So I think he's really interesting. Maybe the value's gone, but yeah, definitely one to take note. Right place, right time.
Yeah, 11-2 best price at the moment, as you say. Massive improvement, stepping up to 3 miles last time at Fairyhouse. Over at Ascot and in the 240 over there in the Coral Hurdle. A high class field. We've got Buzz at 11-10, who we know Andy Holding is very keen on. We've got Molly's Ollie's Wishes, who couldn't have been much more impressive first time out this season. But it's Goshen, the one that you're interested in here. Goshen, of course. A horse that promised so much, that broke many hearts at Cheltenham, and has since, how do we say it? One impressive performance, but a lot of occasions where Goshen's failed to live up to his promise since then. Do you think this weekend we could see a return to form?
For me, the big thing with Goshen is going right-handed. You saw how he hung badly in Cheltenham, and even in the Triumph, he was jumping out to his right, and it keeps him, when a horse hangs like that, it keeps him in his rider's hands, if you like. It keeps him pulling. He doesn't get to relax because he doesn't stop fighting, if you like, because he's going right. It's a constant struggle. So I think, as he showed in Ascot before and in Sandown as well, he won in Wincanton last year too, albeit that's in heavy ground. But I don't think he's as ground dependent, but he definitely will enjoy the 2 mile 3. Now, it's a very competitive race and a hot race with buzz and Sung for Someone. You know, it's a tidy race, but Goshen is a horse in the Triumph Hurdle. And when he came down at the last, or Jamie got the fall off him at the last, he promised a lot that day. And I think there's a chance, and like that, the Moore team would generally have them fairly ready first time. There's a chance he could just start living up to that potential. But for me, the big thing is going right-handed and a stiff track as well. So I'm really interested to see how he does. But it's a very competitive race. But I wouldn't be surprised if we saw something like the Goshen we were hoping we'd see.
Yeah, I was there that day, and that some buzz watching Goshen come around that bend and streak 15, 20 lengths clear before that absolute tragedy at the last. On to the 205, Barry. We couldn't let you go without asking you about a horse that you had some great days with in Defi du Seuil.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing Defi as well. An absolute superstar. And he has great form. Phillips, over the years, Phillips' horse were out of form all last season. So you have to draw a line under that, or through it, should I say. But before that, he's a winner of a Tingle Creek. He's the winner of the Clarence House. You know, he's a high-class performer. He's getting a bit of weight, too, as well, off Dashiell Drasher and Master Tommy Tucker. So it's his first run after a wind up, which wouldn't surprise me. He was always a thick-winded horse, but he does improve for his first run. But maybe the wind up might help him. I'm really looking forward to seeing him. He's the class horse in the race. And as I say, he will improve, but his class might just get him through, maybe.
Yeah, maybe the case. Fingers crossed for both Defi and to Goshen. Thank you very much, Barry Geraghty, their 888 Sport Ambassador, for giving us his thoughts on last weekend's racing and the weekend ahead of us too. Look forward to speaking to you again next week.
Yes, George.
Yeah, thank you as ever to Barry for joining us. Looking forward to speaking to him again next week. I touched there on the Betfair Chase, and that is where we're going to head now with A Plus Tard, the 6-4 favourite, ahead of Specialist Bristol de Mai at 7-2, waiting patiently, fancied there by Barry, 6-1. Next Destination 8-1. Royal Pagaille, all blue on oddschecker, best price 9-1 as it is at the moment. Imperial Aura 12-1. Chatham Street Lad and Clondor Castle 33-1. 8 runners as it stands, Andy. Where do you see the value at this stage in the Betfair Chase?
Well, first and foremost, it's great that we've got 8 runners. I'm just hoping and praying that it stays like that. I can't remember a Betfair Chase with as many in the niche. We usually get 4, 5, or 6, and there's never any each way betting. So that's great news. Where's the value? It's a tricky one because I've always been a massive fan of a Plutard, and on his day, he's knocked out the kind of figures that will make him virtually impossible to beat. It takes a very, very good horse to run a speed figure of 80 or above on our numbers. Only the very, very rare occasions in each season do we get a time figure beyond 80. And twice last season he did an 81 and an 82 in defeat at Cheltenham behind Minorindo and when he won at Leopardstown. So if they go a right gallop, and I presume they will, it's definitely going to play into the hands of a Plutard. Whether we can run to that level off a break, a 246-day break, is obviously open to slight question. But none of these trainers are going to be leaving any stone unturned. It's not think, oh yeah, we'll have a look at this race and getting ready for this. Is like D-Day for all of these. And I think the ground's probably more in a Plutard's favour than a Bristol de Mai or a Royal Pagaille. I think those two would have wanted it, particularly Royal Pagaille would have wanted it a bit softer, which you normally get at this time of year. They probably can't believe it, can they? They're only going to get good to soft at best. And that probably slightly puts me off Royal Pagaille, whose jumping's a little bit suspect here, then everywhere. And I think the faster they go on good ground might just catch him out. Bristol's sure to run well. You know, he's won this race 3 times in the past. He'll be off in front. He's just an amazing horse for connections, and I'm sure he'll give everyone a great spin. And you'd be a brave man to write him off, even though he's a 10-year-old. I think the value probably lies, if I was looking for a value bet at the current odds, would be probably Next Destination. I think it's significant that Paul Nicholls is running him in this race at all, because he looks as though he wants perhaps even further. You know, he ran him obviously against Galvin, didn't he, at the festival? But you know, he's no mug. He has got plenty of pace. I mean, he's run a couple of time figures over 3 miles last year. Was certainly very commendable. He goes really well fresh. I think they're going to run him in cheek pieces, aren't they? Not. I think that's the story behind him, just to kind of like perhaps bookies' ideas of dropping back down in trip. But I do see him as at 8-1 in and around that mark as a horse that I think will hit the frame at the very least, because he does stay really well. He's got a bit of tactical. His jumping's pretty good. I think he's a better jumper by and large than Royal Pagaille, and I think the ground is less important to him as well. So I do think a Plutard will probably win. And I've made many kickstarts, virtually every 10 to follow list that I've got. But I have got Next Destination in there as well as a backup. So he's probably my idea of the next best.
6-4 then about the favourites, the likely winner there for Andy at Plutard, but Next Destination on the drift in a few places, maybe just easing because of Rob Pagaille being strong in the market. But 8-1 Next Destination best price as it stands at the moment. I'm sure that red will turn to blue as soon as Andy's loyal disciples hear him talking him up on this podcast here. Ed, how do you see this going?
Yeah, a bit of a muddling affair because, as Andy's alluded to, usually we're waiting for our swamp-like conditions up at Haydock, haven't we? And old Haydock du Seuil comes into his own, as I like to call him, and yeah, it's going to be pretty nice ground. I mean, a couple of showers around, but much more lively conditions than we used to. Having said that, Bristol du Seuil won it 3 years ago on good, but it was interesting listening to Twisted Davis' team regarding all the chat about ground and flat tracks and everything. They said, look, he's fine on good, but it's just on heavy. It ruins the chance. It blunts the class of a lot of the others. You know, Bristol just loves to gallop on. And so that is the kind of problem when you look at class in here. They're not going to come much better than A Plutard, who's a strong traveller, has pace from 2.5 miles, a flat track will suit. And I do get I understand a lot of people are kind of pointing out his miserable seasonal reappearance record. I think he's been beaten first time out last 3 seasons. However, I take those with a pinch of salt. You know, very much they were runs back in the season with other targets in mind. There's absolutely no way in hell that Henry de Bromhead and Rachel Blackmore are coming over here for a Betfair Chase to have the horse at 85%. He will be absolutely tuned to the minute. And you'll probably only see him 2 or 3 times more this season, one of those being in the Savills Chase and then the Gold Cup. So I think A Plutard, the most likely winner. Waited patiently. You just burn your money perennially, don't you, with this horse? I mean, you're going back nearly 4 years now since he last found the winners enclosure, and there seems to be a different excuse every time. Look, new training, new connections. Yes, the ground's going to be fine for him, but I just, at that kind of price, couldn't have him. I'd be tentative each way. I'll probably go with Imperial Aura, who's had the wind up. Things fell apart in the Ryanair Chase won by Allaho, which was, one of the most scintillating Ryanair chases I've seen. I mean, he had 160 rated horses thrown in the towel, didn't he? 4 from home. If the wind ups worked, I think he's a horse who's always, to me, shaped like he wants to trip. A lot of these Kim Bailey chases end up being, as he says, very slow. I just think, he's shaped to me like he wants 3 miles. Whether he's going to be first time out in this company today's going to be the day or not, I'm not sure. But very tentative selection. He's unexposed. He should have more to offer over a trip. And basically, I'm just playing against the percentages of waiting patiently who doesn't win enough. Royal Pagaille, I think, would be best on heavy ground. Chatham Street Lad, Clondal Castle, I don't think are good enough. And then, that kind of leaves Bristol du Seuil, short enough. Next Destination, I don't quite know what to make of. Interested listening to Andy's viewpoints on that horse. Obviously, his National Hunt Chase form does look pretty good. And it kind of by process of elimination, you come down to A Plutard. So, A Plutard to win, Imperial Aura to follow him home. But got to be honest with you, it's not a race I've got any kind of strong convictions on.
Imperial Aura there, 12-1. Bristol du Seuil, of course, looking to equal Corto Star's record.
As big as 12, so that's
12-1 best price now.
That's fair enough then. I think that's a fair price actually. I kind of thought he would be into single figures by
Interestingly,
now.
as we've spoken there, it's been cut 11-1 best price. And getting finger off the mouse.
I'd also have to just pay homage as well. A little tip of the cap to the Racing Post Weekender this week, who come up with a great headline on their front page. I'm a bit of a stickler. I don't know about Ed, but for the puns, ever since the days of Johnny Vaughan in the Big Breakfast when they used to do the pun down in the morning with Denise Fanan, I do love a lovely headline, and their headline is May, as in obviously MAI, May the 4th be with you. I think,
very good.
Yeah, very good.
I think that's quite a good one. It's probably only surpassed by the one in the Sun this morning with regard to Jack Grealish's antics. Can't keep you uppy, as if to say, obviously, nobody can keep you uppy with the antics of Jack Grealish at the moment. Yeah, so just Just like I say, just a little amusing aside there with regard to the headline for the race.
Didn't have you down as a Sun reader, Andy. I must say, I'm surprised.
I've got various ones on me app, but yeah, if I want any sort of what's going on in the showbiz world or any trash talk, then look no further than the Sun.
Of course, looking forward to seeing any more Strictly Come Dancing bets that come our way from you, Andy, the absolute master of Strictly markets. And then we've got to get back to Haydock, and the 335 is the Betfair Handicap Chase. And we have Strictly a Dancer 13-8 favourite. I think Strictly a Dancer was about 5-1 yesterday before the race cut up. Ramsey's to tie 4-1, Empire Steel 6-1, Potter's Corner 9-1 alongside Fiddix and Mr. Muldoon. Joke Dancer 20-1, 7-run. Ed, give you first run on the last race at Haydock on Saturday.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, yeah, Strictly a Dancer. Become a bit of a win machine, isn't he? Strong traveller, looked really good at Cheltenham. That'd just be my worry, would be backing it up so soon. After that run, that is my slight nervousness there, if you like. But again, a race I find a lot of this Haydock card pretty muddling. I've got some strong views on Ascot, but this again I find a bit tricky. A tentative selection again would be Fiddix. I mean, Alan King was quite interested. Said he thinks he's got it back to his best form. He's come down the handicap after he won in the summer. Got naturally shot up in the weights. He's a bit more exposed than others. I think he's tumbled down to marker 1-3-4-3 off the top of my head. And as we've touched upon, Haydock has been unusually dry, which will play to his strength. So I don't think he's impossibly handicapped off that type of rating. And I think he's around 9-1. Again, if you ran into a place, I wouldn't be shocked. But yeah, no, not most convincing tip. And yeah, Haydock in general, I'm sitting on the fence quite a bit.
Sitting on the fence at Haydock. I can't believe I spoke about Strictly Come Dancing and betting, and the favourite of the race I was segueing into was called Strictly a Dancer, and you were just talking about puns, Andy, and I've completely fluffed my lines.
I know. I gave the obvious assist, didn't I? And you only had to nod it in.
How's your anti-post? How's your anti-post Strictly book looking?
I've just had one. I just had one bet. I backed John. I backed John and Joe Handys each way after week one.
Right.
So I've only really got to get him into the final to get my money back. But I can't see him beating the market leaders at the moment. Giovanni and I can't remember her name now. She's just been brilliant throughout the show. But yeah, I think John and Joe Handys will be in the final. So it'll give me a bit of interest, but I don't think I'm going to win.
I'm getting that. I didn't think I had to have it up. Rose is the
Rose,
favourite.
Of course, yeah. Rose and Giovanni.
Yeah.
Forgive me for not having the Strictly market up on my laptop for this Haydock and Ascot preview.
Forgive me for not remembering her name as well. I've been watching it for the last 10 weeks.
Right, Andy, back to Haydock. Strictly a Dancer is the favourite, 13-8. What do we make of that?
Yeah, he's kind of one of those horses that catches you by surprise in many respects. I think he's, you always kind of underestimate him because he always looks a little bit behind the bridle in a race, and you think, oh, is he travelling? All of a sudden, he comes there on the scene, and you think, oh my God, yeah, and he just ends up running away with it. You're never really sure how much he's got in hand either at the moment, because both times when he's won at Cheltenham and faced the hill, he's rather idled in front. I think he also saves a little bit for himself. So he's a bit of a owner's stroke trainer's dream in the sense he doesn't probably go up as much as what he should do, given his superiority. And I still think he's relatively well handicapped. At least, look, he comes in here with no convictions, as it were. You know, we know he stays well. We know he's in good form. He's running some reasonably decent numbers. And he's got that kind of like Kitty's-like touch about him, hasn't he? Which Christian did really well with last season, carrying all before. And basically, Christian's really good with these 3-mile chases. As he's proven, over the last 2 or 3 years. I think there is going to be one danger. It'll be Ramsey's de Seuil, who runs this track particularly well, and he's another one that 3 mile plus around Haydock. He's knocked out some of his best ever times. The ones in between, the likes of Fiddix and particularly Jake Dance, I'm not sure about him over the trip. They don't strike me as being Haydock horses with regards seeing it out and really battling down that long home straight. I think Fiddix is a real bridle. He races in behind horses and pounces. He's a stalk and pouncer. And Jake Dance, like I say, 2.5 miles, that's the furthest he's been up to now. Potter's Corner ran in the cross-country race, and the other two don't really make that much appeal to me. So I think the market's got this absolutely bob on. Strictly a Dancer, he's in the kind of form that should take advantage of the race cutting up.
Strictly a Dancer there, 13-8. Ramsey's to tie, 4-1. The two to keep an eye on there for Andy. Over we go then to Ascot, and we're going to cover two of the races at Ascot once I can get rid of the Strictly Come Dancing page and go back to the Ascot one. And the first is the grade 2, the Chanel Farmer 1965 Chase over 2 miles and 5 furlongs, where we've got Dashel Drasher is the 5-2 favourite ahead of Lost in Translation and Defi du Seuil, who of course we just heard Barry speaking about in favourable terms, of course, an old friend of his, both 7-2 there. Master Tommy Tucker 5-1, Benny's King 8-1, Pistol Whipped 14-1. Andy.
Yeah, George, a decent looking grade too. I think it's fascinating on many fronts. Lost in Translation, obviously Defi du Seuil, very much on retrieval missions. Out of the two, I'd probably have more faith in Lost in Translation, perhaps getting back to where he was, because we all know he comes from a stable last season in the Shabba Collins, which plainly didn't have a lot of his better horses in the kind of form that he would have wanted. There were obviously the odd shining light. He's third in the Betfair Chase, was definitely, his best effort, and he's still only a 9-year-old, even though he seems as though he's been around longer than that. But Defi du Seuil, I think obviously there's been physical problems with him and wind issues, but I also think mentally he looks shot as well. I don't want to kind of write horses off and give them, an obituary just too early, when I probably, perhaps should be a little bit more forgiving. But I just haven't seen enough from Defi du Seuil in the last 2 years to make me want to back him at 7-2. Whereas I can see Lost in Translation. I can see the angle with him, because Fiddler on the Roof was kind of like the indication that the Tizard team are now back in the big time. And there's been plenty of other of their inmates that have given us that kind of impression. And he's got the kind of numbers in these kind of races as well. But back in the day, to suggest he's not a million miles away from this lot. Obviously, Dashel Drasher sets a good standard. He loves Ascot. He'll go off in front. He'll serve it up. You can imagine Connections have had this race in mind for quite some time. And he's got to be respected, because he's a very, very hardy horse. But he might just be taken on by Master Tommy Tucker. I can see this race kind of having that feel about it, whereby you want to just be sort of stalking the speed and maybe just slightly off of it rather than actually full bore on it. So certainly Dashel Drasher will have his mettle tested early on. So that's why I'm probably looking at towards Lost in Translation as being the value bet here around about the 7-2 mark. He's also had that wind up as well, which might just, I think he's been completely hobdayed as well. So he's had the full treatment. So yeah, he'd be the one if I was going to have a bet, he would probably be the one I'd risk just a round of drinks on.
Yeah, Lost in Translation there, 7-2. Ed, you said you didn't have much of Haydock, but you had a couple of bits for us at Ascot. No pressure.
Yeah, I mean, in this race, I would be with Lost in Translation if I had to pick. Again, it's a funny old race, because you've got Dashel Drasher as the horse who's been doing it. But I would really worry about him on this ground. I mean, it's going to be pretty lively ground at Ascot. I think it's officially good to soft in places at the time of recording. There's no rain forecast whatsoever. And all Dashel Drasher's best form has come on a very deep surface. It was heavy when he won her in December last season. When he beat Master Tommy Tucker at the February meeting, I mean, there was mud flying everywhere. This is a totally different ball game. Master Tommy Tucker, I'm just sure, is not quite up to it. He's rising 11 now as well, let's not forget. And then it leaves the kind of enigmas, for want of a better phrase, in Defi du Seuil and Lost in Translation. Defi du Seuil, as Andy says, hasn't shown a great deal for 18 months now. And also, he's had a lot of 2-mile championship racing. I'd worry about him being a little bit keen on his comeback, going out to this, this 2 mile 5 furlongs off the back of a break. He might want to get on with this and fall in a hole a bit. Where Lost in Translation, crying out loud, I don't think there's another horse in here who could beat Bristol to Mine, Frodon in a Betfair Chase, or be leading the Gold Cup with 100 yards to go. Yes, there's been water under the bridge since, but he's a class act on his day. He's had the wind up. The ground's come right for him. And also, for a bit of context with the Colin Tizard team, we've spoke about it last season. They had a low-grade virus in the yard and the hay and everything. Well, there are only 14 winners behind eclipsing last season's total. And there's still 5 months to go in this National Hunt season. That kind of tells you where they are this time round relative to last season. They're operating around 22% strike rate over the last month, whereas it was well, I think it was 9% was their season strike rate last season. So basically everything is trending in the right direction. You've seen horses who apparently lost their way, likes of Eldorado Allen in the Holden Gold Cup, suddenly kind of spring forward and really look them old selves again. So Lost in Translation, first time out, wind up in this company, ground fine. He's always been a strong traveller over 3 miles. He's not one of those 3-milers who wants to go on and gallop. So I don't think coming back to 2.5 is necessarily a problem because he's not short of a bit of toe. So yeah, I was playing the percentages. I think Lost in Translation on this ground has got to have an outstanding chance. But this way, if he can't kind of get it done here today, or at least go close in it, then you're going to struggle to think where they go with him from here. So yeah, Lost in Translation for me. Also worth noting, he's getting £6 from Master Tommy Tucker and Dashel Drasher. So when you kind of throw that in with the official ratings as well, that's another nice fillip, isn't it? So yeah, Lost in Translation for me, definitely.
7-2, Lost in Translation there for Ed as well. The final race we're going to cover in depth is the Coral Hurdle at Ascot, the 240. And Andy, I know you're a big fan of the favourite here, Buzz, at 11-10. We heard there that Barry expects a possible return to form for Goshen, who's 4-1. Molly's Ollie's Bush is 6-1. Song for Someone 7-1. Guard Your Dreams is currently 9-1, but is a sea of blue on oddschecker, as short as 6-1. I have a feeling by the time this goes out, that 9-1 will be ancient history. But Andy, let's talk about Buzz, 11-10, a horse that you think is primed to go well in the Stayers division this season.
Yeah, I've talked about him in fairly favourable tones ever since he won the Cesarewitch. I was just completely blown away by his performance at Newmarket. Yes, it was a great training performance by Nicky Henderson, but I don't think even the great man could have anticipated how well he won that day, because he was very strong in the last two furlongs. And he needed to be as well. You needed a horse that wanted it, dug deep down in the trenches, because they went an unbelievable pace. If you go back and actually watch that Cesarewitch and watch how those good quality handicappers dropped away one by one and waved the white flag, horses that were laid out for the race and looked really well handicapped were just absolutely, they were turned into mincemeat at the end. And there was only 2 horses that stood the test. Straight away, I thought to myself, how am I going to maximise Buzz this season, and what races will Nicky Henderson run in? Straight away, I thought Stayers Hurdle, because he looked a thorough stay that day. You look back at his hurdle performance, he's just getting better the further he goes in all these races. Even when he ran against Not So Sleepy last year at Ascot, he was doing all his best work at the end of a 2. They upped him to 2.5 at Aintree, and again he was almost outpaced around Aintree, catching Abracadabra on the running. So he's a genuine grade 2 horse at the moment over 2.5, maybe grade 1 at a push. And then you add into the factor that he's capable of probably doing even more over 3 miles. And that's one of the reasons why I backed him anti-post for the Stayers Hurdle. I thought he was a massive rick or mistake after Newmarket, and his odds have slightly tumbled now to in and around the 16-20-1 mark. But come Saturday afternoon, I think, and I'm hoping that he will put himself firmly on the map. Obviously, he's got to prove himself over 3 miles. This is only 2.5, but I think this is a good stepping stone. I would have thought they would have gone to Newbury, actually. I don't know what Ed thought. I thought Newbury looked the race. Let's find out whether he's a 3-miler. Let's take on the likes of Time Hill, maybe, or Paisley Park, and see what we've got. But Nicky does like Ascot, and the horse himself likes Ascot. So you could half see why that they are coming here. The race should be run to suit, shouldn't it? Goshen, song for someone. Free going types that make a good pace for him. There shouldn't be any excuses there. We know he's in great form. It's hard to see beyond him perhaps winning this race, I think. Whether I'd take 11-10 is open to question. But getting on to Guard Your Dreams, I think he's very much the fly in the ointment here. I actually I almost went against my inner beliefs of what will win this race, because I could not resist backing Guard Your Dreams at 12-1 anti-post with 3 places, because I think he'll be second even if he doesn't win, basically because I just want to get with him off the back of that run at Cheltenham. I've basically bought every horse out of that Cheltenham race subsequently. Actually, the form gets tested again on Fridays. We've got Captain Morgs running in it. But me and Ed both liked our approval out of it the other day, who had an eye-catching run behind Guard Your Dreams, and he won very well at Cheltenham on Friday. And I think Cool Cody would have probably won the the Paddy Paddy not falling at the second last, given how the race panned out in the end. So that time figure that Guard Your Dreams did at Cheltenham that day suggests to me that he's right up to this level, and we know he's fitting well. I think he'll beat Molly Aussie Wishes, and I think he might prove good enough to beat Goshen and Song for Someone as well. But whether he beat Buzz, I don't know. But he's definitely a bet either now at 9-1 or without the favourite come Saturday. I think you can get 9-2 without the favourite at the moment, can't you? If you have a shop around.
Let's have a look. I mean, I'm guessing whilst I look for that, judging by the noises that Ed was making whilst he said that, I've got a feeling you just took the words right out of his mouth. Yeah, 9-2 best price at the moment for without Buzz.
9-2 without the fab. So yeah, if you take 9-1 in the win market, and then just have a saver on the 9-2 if you can get that without Buzz. Can't see any of the result. Think it'll either be one or the other.
Ed, have I given Andy first run and he's managed to scoot clear before you've even been able to have your say?
Yeah, I thought in Paul Daniels' style, I had some nice little trick up my sleeve here, but I've been I'm batting at the pavilion end, and Andy's come up, bowled into the rough, and just absolutely done me there. Yeah, it's I thought God, Your Dreams was the sneaky one in here, to be honest with you. The aforementioned form of that Cheltenham race is working out, albeit at a slightly lower level, but it is working out well. Ground will be fine. I think Buzz the most likely winner. I'm interested on Andy's point with Buzz. I actually think they'll probably go here and they'll probably look to the Ascot 3-miler before Christmas. I think that looks the most logical target, getting in and running here, where he will clash with Time Hill, you would think, and a few others there. But look, there's a lot of talk with Goshen about it needs to go left-handed, right-handed, up and down, around in circles. To be honest with you, I mean, the truth of the matter is all his form over hurdles of Gary Moore has come on predominantly heavy ground or softer heavy ground. He didn't run last week by all accounts on the basis of the ground being too quick. It's just going to be like a runway game for him. Now, maybe right-handed, stepping up in trip will help to mitigate things a little bit, but I can't have Goshen on my mind at that price. Sold for someone, won an abysmal renewal of this. What did he beat? Larina, who retired afterwards, and Call Me Lord, just nowhere near this level. And again, all his best forms on soft ground. Molly's Ollie's Wishes is improving, but again, she won that listed race in Warwick. It was an absolute swamp that day. The mud was flying everywhere. I like to see her and more juice in the ground. Guard Your Dreams is fit, form's working out well, and essentially, I think he'll be the one most likely to chase home Buzz. So yeah, that'd probably be my straight forecast: Buzz to beat Guard Your Dreams.
Guard Your Dreams, possibly the buzzkill, 9-1 best price as it stands at the moment. Buzz 11-10. That brings us to a close of the races we're going to cover in detail. But before we go, Andy, a couple of novice hurdles opening up both cards. Anything from those two? You know, we know that you're very good with these, with your time figures, where you're good with everything. But these are your speciality. Anything to keep an eye on here?
It's a shame that we haven't got many runners in the races at Ascot. It's a bit of a shame, really. We do get a chance to see Go Dante, by the way, on Friday. I know we're not covering Friday's card, but he runs at Ascot. Again, depleted field. I was a little bit disappointed to see only 3 opponents taking on. But the first race at Haydock on Saturday is a really good race between several promising types, but none more so than Might Eye from the Harry Fry stable. It reminds me very much of Metier this time last year, when Metier burst onto the scene. Metier made his debut, didn't he, at Newton Abbot, and lo and behold, that's exactly what happened to Might Eye. He beat Thunder Rock of Ollie Murphy's quite readily, and Thunder Rock disposed of his field at Wetherby on Saturday with quite a bit of panache. So the form of that Newton Abbot race has already taken an instant boost. His time figure was very good, not quite top class, but very good. But I think he's got a lot to offer that horse. He could do with probably softer ground if it had been nitpicky with him. I think he's a genuine soft ground horse as well. He'll probably get that later on in the season in something like the Tolworth Hurdle. I could see him going there, but yeah, it'll take a good horse to beat him. I think he's pretty good.
Might Eye there, the one to look out for in the opener. Haydock. Anything else for you over the weekend's cards? Anything else you're keeping an eye on?
Well, obviously, just in terms of keeping an eye on, Bob Ollinger makes his Chase debut on Saturday, which will be well awaited. We're all looking forward to. But no, on my best bet on the Ascot card on the Saturday, will actually come in the 3:15. It's the outsider of the field. I think can run a huge race here. Diego du Seuil for Paul Nicholls. I mean, it's a hot race with Sky Pirate and Full Midnight in, but this horse loves Ascot. Of course, you remember that crazy race with Capeland and when horses nearly went through wings and outside the fences and all sorts going back a few years ago. But Ascot and fences is his backyard, if you like. His form figures are 1-3-2 over course of distance, other than the full. He's clearly been trained to the minute for this. He had his wind up in the off season, had a spin over hurdles at Foss last to get him spot on for this. Off a BHA rating of 150, he's now slipped back down to the same mark as when last successful. And Paul Nicholls has said this is the target for him. If you see what I'm saying, this is his Gold Cup. So I think I did the tissue for this. I had him in around the 6-1 mark when the entries came through. I was shocked to see him as the 12-1 outside of the field personally when I looked. So Diego de Charmil,
14, Ted.
Yeah, I think that's big. I do. He'll be trained to the minute for this. Lorcan Williams is on board, taking another £3 off. I mean, I respect Sky Pirate, but to win any handicap on these shores off 159, I mean, you might as well be. I'm surprised they're not rolling the dice and going for straight to the Tingle Creek or something. If he's going to run to the mid 160s, he ought to be kind of mixing it. Well, we thought he might have run in the Schlur Chase, wouldn't we, recently, but they decided not to. So that's a big ask. And I just think, slip to his last mark, course of distance winner, ground fine, trained to the minute. I do think Diego de Charmil is, I think he should be half the price he is. So I've backed him accordingly.
Diego de Charmil there for Ed. And that brings us to a close. Thank you very much to Ed and Andy for offering their insight across the racing at Haydock and at Ascot. Thank you very much to 888 Sport for sponsoring the pod, and to Barry Geraghty, 888 Sport ambassador, as ever, for joining us and giving us his thoughts on the weekend's racing. Make sure you download the oddschecker app for all the best prices we've been talking about today, the best place terms, booking offers, free bets, and Andy's tips straight to the app every morning of racing. Make sure you subscribe to the Oddschecker YouTube channel for all this preview content every week, and plenty of feature content as well. Some of you may have seen a certain racing blogger, day in the life of racing blogger preview out on Twitter this week. That should be a fairly interesting watch. I'm lucky enough to have seen a bit, and it lives up to the expectation. And make sure you subscribe to the podcast on any podcast platform as well. Hopefully you enjoy the racing, whether you're watching it on course or from the comfort of your home, but please ensure you are gambling responsibly.